Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today we are starting a devotional series on balance, and this will be a 3-day series. So I hope that you enjoy, and then spend some time reading the Word and getting familiar with the passage that we're going to talk to. So as we talk about balance, it's important for us to understand that God has established for us a life that He wants us to live in. That life doesn't always come with instructions, right? The Bible is a good instruction manual, they say, for life, and it has insight that we need to get. But if we're not looking for it, that insight, it's easy to kind of miss it. And so we don't have instructions that are like written on the walls, or written on our hands, or written someplace else. It's written in the Word, and so we have to kind of seek it out and search it out to know it. But again, I want to say that most of the time, if we're not looking for an understanding, if we're not looking for insight in a particular area, we can completely bypass important information and find ourselves in a situation that's not beneficial. So we need to always add with our life a measure of wisdom, which means that we're seeking an understanding and applying that understanding to our life according to the Word and the character of God as demonstrated within the Word. So this week, we're talking about balance because it is wise for a person to live a life that is balanced and not one that has extremes that are not hospitable to them. So as we talk about balance, we're going to look at a passage from Ecclesiastes, the 4th chapter. Actually, all of our devotionals will be from the 4th chapter of Ecclesiastes because it actually deals with helping people understand the importance and significance of balance. We know that Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. We know that he was a wise man. And so we understand that from the work that he did, that he's trying to impart his wisdom on others. And so let's begin with Ecclesiastes 4, for verses 4 through 6. And we're going to talk about here work-life balance, understanding when to work and when to rest. And so the passage says, verse 4, I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of a rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. One handful of rest is better than 2 fists full of labor and striving after wind. And so we get a lot of little packed into this one passage, so we need to kind of dissect it because he's talking about 3 different ways where people can be imbalanced and how they need to correct that imbalance by being balanced. And so the first part is that he's seen that people compete. Basically, they're trying to be better than the next person. They're trying to outpace this other person. They're trying to outdo this next person. And so that competition is unhealthy. He says basically it's fruitless to be able to try to improve yourself in order to be better than someone else. Doesn't make any sense. We really should be being our best because our best is what God wants from us. And so it's important that we're not being competitive in order to make a gain in life. We need to, again, the competition, if any at all, is with ourselves to be our best, to do our most excellent work, to demonstrate that we are workmen that is equipped to do what God has called us to do. And so we want to not be ashamed, so that we need to be able to really do what it is that we are tasked to do well. And if we're not good at that, we need to grow in that regard. But it's not that I'm coming against Bill. I mean, Bill and I, as soon as Bill gets close, I'm going to strive even harder to make sure I stay in front of Bill. No, it's not. That's not the intention. The intention, again, is to say, am I doing what I can do the best? And if I'm able to, if Bill's there and I can work harder because Bill's there, then technically I should be able to do that on my own, right? I should be able to run. I should be able to keep up my own pace and my own work as I see fit and is appropriate. And so that's something that we want to be mindful of as we think about balance. That are we focusing on ourselves or are we focusing on other people? Because we should be focusing on ourselves and our own intentions. Then the next area is that the fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. And so what is he saying? It's foolish not to work. Basically, it's foolish to think that you don't need to work to achieve anything, to accomplish anything. everything. That's foolish because it puts you in a position of consuming your own flesh. You're going to deteriorate because you're not putting in any effort. So although it's not good to be competing with somebody to try to be better than them in a particular area, it's also not good for you to just sit and do nothing and be idle, because that idleness is foolishness, right? And it says that it consumes our own flesh. And then verse 6 goes into the place where it says, one handful of rest is better than 2 fistfuls of labor and striving after wind. And so then it says, listen, it is foolish to be sitting doing nothing, but at the same time, you need to learn how to have rest and how to work. And so we get this concept holistically in this passage about what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. So competition for the sake of competition, just so you can beat your neighbor, inappropriate. Not working at all, which means you won't make any benefit or any gain, inappropriate. And then lastly, it's foolish to think you're going to just work all the time and never get rest. It's better that you do a moderate amount of work and be able to rest and be restored than it is if you do a great amount of work and you never find rest for all of your toils. And so it's important that we have work and rest balance according to the scriptures. And so I want to remind you that Solomon, we know, had asked for wisdom, and the Bible attributes him to being the wisest man that ever lived. And as we think about that, then we realize that Solomon had some understanding and some insight that's really important and practical for us to grab a hold of. And that is balance. Basically, in this passage, he's making it really, really clear. It needs to be balanced. You need to have an integrity for why you do what you do, and you need to be able to do that right and well and continue to pace and make the right gains in that area, because if you're not doing that right and well and making appropriate gains, it's going to be obvious, and that's going to be a problem. So continue to trust God, definitely, but I want you to take some time to examine yourself in the area of work and rest. Are you balanced? Are you working too much? Are you resting too much? Do you need to figure out when to do what? If so, that's great, because Solomon is offering us good wisdom, but not just Solomon. Ecclesiastes has a lot of wisdom in it, but there's other passages in the scriptures that will help us to understand the importance of God saying that we need to live a life that edifies and glorifies Him. That's really difficult to do if we're overworking ourselves. It's also very difficult to do if we're being basically lazy and not working at all. We need to figure out which way and how to balance the work in our life with the rest in our life and get into a place of wellness. We are praying for you. We're praying that you're healing, living, and growing. We're praying that you're learning new things from the Word and about God and applying that to your own life in order to see a dynamic change. We're going to continue to do our devotional series for the next 2 days, so we're asking that you will follow up with us again tomorrow as we go forth into the second day of balance. Until then, be blessed.